1972, one film didn't just change cinema, it rewrote the rules. The Godfather wasn't just a gangster movie. It was an epic family saga, a political statement, a cultural landmark. But what if I told you the most shocking parts never made it to the screen? From real mafia involvement to a severed horse head, from casting scandals to near-studio mutiny, The Godfather's production was just as dramatic as the Corleone family's story. So settle in, because we're diving into 20 untold secrets behind The Godfather, and one bonus fact that nearly destroyed the entire film. Let's open the family ledger. 1. Brando, the man they tried to bury. Believe it or not, Paramount initially hated the idea of casting Marlon Brando. He was seen as washed up, a diva with box office poison trailing him from film to film. Studio head Stanley Jaffe was so adamant. He reportedly said Brando would never appear in a Paramount film, as long as I'm president. But director Francis Ford Coppola saw something different. He sent Brando a makeup kit and begged him to shoot a transformation video. Brando, ever the chameleon, stuffed cotton in his cheeks, slicked back his hair, and emerged as Don Vito. Paramount didn't even recognize him. Brando got the part, but only on brutal terms. No upfront salary, a $1 million bond, and a mandatory screen test. That gamble paid off. Brando's Don Vito wasn't just iconic, it was legendary, and he later won Best Actor, a win he famously refused. But more on that later. 2. The Real Horse Head. It's one of cinema's most infamous scenes. Jack Woltz waking up to find a horse head in his bed. What most people don't know, that wasn't a prop. Coppola rejected a rubber version, calling it Halloween junk, so the team acquired a real horse head from a New Jersey dog food factory. Actor John Marley had no idea it was real until the camera rolled. When he lifted the sheets and saw, and smelled, the real thing, his horror was genuine. He recoiled, gagged, and screamed. Coppola got the reaction he wanted. Not acting, but terror. 3. The mob got involved literally. While Hollywood was preparing its masterpiece, the real mafia was watching, and they weren't happy. Joe Colombo, head of the Italian-American Civil Rights League and a powerful mob boss, demanded the film remove the words Mafia and Cosa Nostra from the script. Coppola and producer Al Ruddy had no choice but to comply. In exchange, they got access to neighborhoods, silence on the streets during filming, and even the occasional donation to keep vendors cooperative. Union threats disappeared overnight. But when Colombo was gunned down in public in 1971, the eerie overlap between the film and real-life organized crime became all too real. This wasn't just a story about the mob was the story. 4. Spaghetti and family chemistry. To build a believable family, Francis Ford Coppola didn't start with the camera. He started with the dinner table. Long before the first scene was shot, Coppola understood that The Godfather wasn't just about crime or power. At its core, it was about family. And for that to feel real on screen, it had to be real off-screen too. So, he did something no Hollywood director had ever really done before. He hosted a full Italian family dinner in East Harlem at the legendary restaurant Patsy's. But this wasn't just a casual meet and greet. It was a full-on immersive rehearsal with a twist. Every cast member was required to stay in character the entire time. That meant Marlon Brando sat at the head of the table as Don Vito Corleone, radiating quiet authority. Al Pacino brooded in silence as Michael. James Caan cracked jokes as the fiery Sonny. Diane Keaton observed the family dynamic as Kay, the outsider. Even Talia Shire, Coppola's own sister, embraced her role as the emotional and impulsive Connie. The table was laden with traditional Italian dishes: spaghetti, meatballs, bread, wine, all chosen to evoke the warmth and authenticity of a real Corleone gathering. But Coppola's genius went beyond the menu. He encouraged the actors to improvise, to bicker like siblings, to toast like cousins, to mourn like widows. In one recollection, Robert Duvall described Marlon Brando stealing the spotlight with improvised monologues in character, while the others responded naturally, their reactions unscripted but deeply in tune. It wasn't just a bonding exercise, it was chemistry building at its finest. These dinners allowed the actors to form real relationships, to develop unscripted rhythms, to understand how their characters fit into the emotional architecture of the family. And it worked. By the time the cameras started rolling, that family dynamic was baked in. not just memorized. Even more astonishing, real-life mobsters attended some of these dinners. Their quiet presence, intimidating yet respectful, added an unmistakable gravity to the atmosphere. The actors weren't just playing gangsters. They were sitting next to the real thing. The result? On screen, what you saw wasn't just acting. It was muscle memory. It was instinct. It was family, forged not in rehearsal rooms, but over pasta and red wine. 5. Pacino nearly got fired. Al Pacino's role as Michael Corleone defined his career. But in the first week of shooting, the studio thought he was a total disaster. Too quiet, too weak. They nearly replaced him with Warren Beatty or Robert Redford. Coppola fought back and rescheduled the pivotal restaurant assassination scene to prove Pacino's worth. When the scene played back, with Michael's slow burn exploding into cold-blooded murder, everyone shut up. That scene saved Pacino's job and arguably the movie. 6. Brando's whisper and the cat that ruined it. That low, raspy Don Vito whisper? Inspired by real-life mob boss Frank Costello's voice on FBI tapes. But during filming, a stray cat wandered onto the set. Brando scooped it up, unscripted, and stroked it while delivering his lines. The cat's purring, however, was so loud it nearly drowned out Brando's dialogue. Sound engineers had to re-record half his lines. It was chaos in post-production. But on screen, the moment was pure magic. Brando, cold and calculating, petting a kitten. Menace and tenderness in one unforgettable image. 7. Brando never memorized lines. Marlon Brando was never a conventional actor, and he certainly wasn't going to start with The Godfather. While most actors spent hours drilling lines, pacing hotel rooms and rehearsing monologues, Brando did the exact opposite. He believed that memorization killed authenticity. In his view, once a line was committed to memory, it lost its natural rhythm, its unpredictability, its life. So he came up with his own method. On set, Brando refused to memorize his dialogue. Instead, he had cue cards hidden everywhere, taped inside drawers, behind table lamps, propped up behind props, and even on the foreheads of fellow actors. Al Pacino, years later, admitted that in one emotional scene, Brando was literally reading his lines off a board just out of the camera's frame, all while delivering what looked like deep, paternal reflection. In the iconic garden scene, where Don Vito passes down wisdom to his son Michael, Brando's halting, reflective delivery wasn't scripted. It was Brando processing and reacting to the cue cards in real time. Those subtle pauses, the way he appeared to wrestle with each word, gave Don Vito an added depth, as though every sentence cost him something to say. The result wasn't stiff or lazy. It was alive. The Godfather didn't speak in rehearsed speeches. He considered his words. And thanks to Brando's method, that emotional gravity came through in every pause. What's even more fascinating is how his co-stars adapted. Many of them were trained stage actors, precise, disciplined, deliberate. But acting opposite Brando meant throwing all that out the window. You had to respond to him, not just follow the script. He might whisper a line or change it entirely, and you had to stay in it. This pushed actors like Pacino and Duvall into a rawer, more instinctive place. It turned every scene with Brando into a masterclass in presence. Coppola, far from objecting, embraced it. He understood that Brando's unpredictability was a gift. It forced everyone around him to stay alert, to be real. And that's why those moments, particularly in the quiet scenes, still echo with power. Because they weren't just acted, they were felt. 8. Real mobsters on set. It wasn't just mob politics behind the scenes. Real gangsters visited the set. Frank Costello's tapes inspired Brando's voice. Lenny Montana, who played Luca Brasi, was a real-life enforcer for the Colombo crime family. He was so nervous about acting that he stammered and sweated through his lines. So Coppola rewrote the scene to include his jitters as part of Brasi's fear of Don Vito. The authenticity wasn't just method acting. It was reality. 9. The power of oranges. Oranges appear throughout The Godfather right before someone dies. Vito is buying oranges when he's gunned down. There's a bowl of oranges before the horse head scene. At the meeting before the massacre. It wasn't intentional at first. Production designer Dean Tavoularis just liked the pop of color. But Coppola noticed the pattern, and instead of removing them, he leaned in. The oranges became a silent omen, a juicy, glowing warning that death was near. 10. A scene so bloody it took 3 days to shoot. Sonny's death at the toll booth is one of the most violent deaths ever filmed. James Caan wore over 100 squibs, tiny explosive charges, under his clothes. The blood wasn't corn syrup. It was a custom mix of chocolate syrup, photo developer, and red dye. The scene took 3 days and nearly sent Caan to the hospital. Afterward, he was covered in bruises and plastic fragments. But the result? Iconic. 11. The studio wanted bell-bottoms. Paramount originally wanted to set The Godfather in the 1970s to save money on costumes and sets. Coppola refused. He fought and nearly lost his job to keep the 1940s, 50s period setting. The suits thought they were hemorrhaging money. But Coppola knew, without the right era, the Corleone saga would fall flat. He won. And because of that, we got those vintage cars, muted tones, and timeless style. 12. Sicily's heat almost killed production. To film Michael's exile in Sicily, the crew traveled to Corleone during a brutal heat wave. Temperatures hit 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Cameras malfunctioned. Cars broke down. The local dialect was so obscure even Italian interpreters couldn't help, forcing actors to use phonetic cue cards. Food rotted. Tempers flared. But when the sun dipped and the shadows returned, what they captured was haunting beauty. Michael's exile became a dreamlike, tragic chapter, forged in blistering heat. 13. Leave the gun, take the cannoli was improvised. That unforgettable line? Never in the script. Actor Richard Castellano ad-libbed it after his wife brought him real cannoli to set. During the hit scene, he shoots a traitor and casually tells his partner to take the cannoli. Coppola loved it. It stayed in the film, and soon bakeries across the country were printing it on their walls. 14. Sofia Coppola's first role saved a scene. The baptism scene needed a baby, and no parent would volunteer theirs. So Coppola turned to his wife, who brought their 6-week-old daughter Sofia to set. The crew built a quiet crib behind the camera, adjusted lights for comfort, and timed the shoot with her feeding schedule. The result? A baby who slept soundly through one of the most powerful montages in movie history, while her godfather damned his soul. 15. Editing war behind closed doors. Paramount wanted the film under 2 hours. Coppola's cut was 3. Executives hacked away at the film, gutting crucial scenes. Editor Peter Zinner secretly kept a full version, screened it to test audiences, and the crowd erupted. The studio caved. Silence, glances, pauses, all the moments that make The Godfather breathe were saved. 16. The baptism scene changed film forever. The cross-cutting between the baptism and brutal murders was revolutionary. Sacred vows drowned out by shotgun blasts. Editors toggled between holiness and horror, something no film had dared to do so boldly before. It birthed the style of modern music video editing and inspired generations of filmmakers. Violence and virtue, framed together, one heartbeat apart. 17. Brando's Oscar protest. Brando didn't attend the Oscars when he won Best Actor. Instead, he sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to decline the award, live on stage. The protest condemned Hollywood's racist portrayal of Native Americans. The backlash was fierce. John Wayne reportedly had to be physically restrained from attacking her. Brando, watching from across town, had time to press release to drop the moment she finished speaking. It wasn't a stunt. It was a political strike. 18. The love theme that lost an Oscar. Nino Rota's mournful trumpet theme became the soul of The Godfather. But the Academy later discovered he had used a variation of the melody in a 1958 Italian film. They revoked the nomination mid-ballot, an unprecedented move. Rota was unfazed. Music is a living thing, he said. Years later, he won for The Godfather Part 2. 19. The funeral home was real. To build The Undertaker's parlor, production designer Dean Tavares visited real mob funerals, guided by a Gambino associate. He copied everything: drapes, lighting, even the faint smell of embalming chemicals, pumped into the set to make actors lower their voices instinctively. When morticians saw the film, they claimed they recognized their own furniture. 20. A frozen cargo nearly erased history. Months after the premiere, reels of The Godfather were being shipped to Rome when the refrigeration unit in the cargo hold failed. The film stock nearly froze solid. a temperature disaster that threatened to shatter the emulsion and destroy every frame. Technicians saved the fragile reels of The Godfather through sheer patience and precision, warming the film canisters in water baths, increasing the temperature by just 1 degree per hour. For 2 painstaking days, they held their breath, hoping the celluloid would survive. Had anyone rushed the process, the emulsion could have shattered like glass, erasing Coppola's vision and one of cinema's greatest achievements. It was a near-death experience for the film, a silent brush with oblivion, one that history has all but forgotten. But perhaps that close call was fitting, because The Godfather has always been a story balanced on the edge, between art and chaos, between power and fragility. It was never just a movie, it was a battleground. Every frame was fought for, from the battles over Brando and Pacino, to the mafia's involvement in script revisions, to Coppola himself nearly being fired multiple times. The studios wanted a quick, cheap gangster flick. What they got was a sweeping family opera that redefined American cinema. And what's truly remarkable is how those hard-won choices still echo across generations. 50 years later, viewers still flinch when they see oranges on screen. They still lean in when Brando mumbles in shadows. The whispers of power, of betrayal, of family, they still haunt. The cat that curled in Don Vito's lap wasn't trained. The tears weren't rehearsed, and the blood didn't always come from corn syrup. The movie's soul was not constructed, it was captured. Today, The Godfather is more than a film. It's a cinematic scripture. Its dialogue is quoted in courtrooms, classrooms, even Senate hearings. Its themes are studied in film schools and mimicked in everything from television dramas to corporate strategy guides. And its impact, unshakable. From blood-stained scripts to whispered protests, from mafia threats to freezing reels, The Godfather was never supposed to survive, let alone become a legend. But it did, because it told the truth, that loyalty has a cost, that family is everything, and that real power lives in silence, in shadows, and in the spaces between the lines. And that's why, even now, we still kiss the ring. So if this film changed how you see loyalty, betrayal, and the art of cinema, like, share and subscribe. Because this family story is one we'll be telling forever.